morning, good afternoon, welcome to Baptist for Liberty. I'm your host, Joanna Work. Once again, it is a Monday. Today is Monday, July 7th. In the news, we have quite a bit of headlines here, and there's plenty more stories that I probably haven't caught up on yet. But let's see. For Monday, June 30th, there was a bombing in Egypt. The headline is, Bomb Explosions Kill Egyptian Policeman in Cairo. This is from vicenews.com. On Tuesday, new Georgia health freedom law goes into effect. This was posted by 10thAmendmentCenter.com. Let's see, and quote, today a law that bans the state from participating in significant portions of the Affordable Care Act went into full effect. This represents the first step in the nullification of the federal act in Georgia. It certainly doesn't end the unconstitutional health care program in the Peach State, but it creates impediments to further implementation and lays the background for future action. And the article continues. We also have Panama's new free market, in quotation marks. President wants price controls on food. There's a lot of people that say, oh yeah, we're for free market, but they're still for controls and regulations. I think control is really the operative word here. Wednesday, July 2nd, amendment resolution complements Wolfpack on CON plan. This is from the New American, written by Warren Mass. And again, we talked a little bit in previous podcasts about constitutional conventions. That's what CON is short for. And this article, to start with, says, Senate Joint Resolution 19, which has been co-sponsored by 43 senators, proposes an amendment to the Constitution relating to contributions and expenditures intended to affect elections. On May 14th, Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid threw his weight behind the resolution, saying, we're going to push a constitutional amendment so we can limit spending because what is going on today is awful. I'm going to scroll down just a little bit more, and because it covers a little bit about one of Harry Reid's previous re-election problems. So it says, after his close call, Reid joyfully recalled that things had changed for the good, at least for his good. By 2004, quote, I felt so clean and pure with McCain-Feingold, which had come into being. It was wonderful. We were back where we should have been, he said. With the new campaign finance restrictions in place, Reid won re-election with 61% of the vote. McCain-Feingold, the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act of 2002, which won eventual passage as the House version, placed stringent restrictions on campaign contributions by interest groups and other organizations. Reid showed his hand openly when he bemoaned the Supreme Court 2010 Citizen United versus Federal Elections Commission ruling, which held that the First Amendment prohibits the federal government from restricting political independent expenditures by corporations, associations, and labor unions. Justice Kennedy stated in the majority opinion, the majority wrote, if the First Amendment has any force, it prohibits Congress from fining or jailing citizens or associations of citizens for simply engaging in political speech. Reid revealed his reaction to the freedom that Citizens United restored to organizations to donate to campaigns. It was as if I had jumped into the sewer. It's awful what has happened. And of course, you can read this full story at thenewamerican.com. You can find the link on our website. All the stories that we'll mention will have the links to them on baptistforliberty.weebly.com. Also, Supreme Court ruling on unions could make the end of the Democratic Party. This story comes from benswan.com. Also, on July 2nd, we have the Rutherford Institute files First Amendment lawsuit challenging discriminatory election laws that favor major party candidates over independent and minor ones. And they have on their website, on the RutherfordInstitute.com's .org, Their website has this story alleging that Virginia's signature and ballot placement election laws favor major party candidates for political office, while discriminating against minor party and independent candidates. The Rutherford Institute has filed a First Amendment lawsuit in federal district court against the State Board of Elections, the SBE. Institute attorneys have asked the U.S. District Court for the Eastern District of Virginia to strike down Virginia's law requiring Democrat and Republican candidates to be given the first and higher spots on ballots, thereby giving them an unfair advantage over other candidates, as well as requiring minor party and independent candidates to obtain numerous signatures in order to be listed on election ballots while exempting Democrat and Republican candidates. The lawsuit was filed on behalf of the Libertarian Party of Virginia, several Libertarian Party candidates, and an independent non-party candidate for public office in the November 2014 general election. There was a time in our nation's history when a person's vote counted for something more than merely the illusion of participation, and when the people's referendum at the ballot boxes brought about a change in the way government did business. That is no longer the case, thanks in large part to a corrupt political establishment that favors an elitist two-party system whose primary aim is to maintain the status quo, said John W. Whitehead, president of the Rutherford Institute and author of the award-winning book A Government of Wolves, The Emerging American Police State. And the article goes on, and Mr. Whitehead has written several books. He's been writing since at least the early 80s, if not longer, on legal issues of freedom as well as homeschooling and other political issues that's touched by these topics. Let's see, what else? Puerto Rico balances budget by taking more money from big business. This story is from the Pan Am Post. I think stories revolving Puerto Rico is certainly of interest of any citizens in the U.S. On early Tuesday morning, the Puerto Rico Congress approved a $9.5 billion in U.S. dollar budget, the first one in 20 years without a deficit. The balanced budget was achieved thanks to a controversial tax called the National Patent, expected to bring the government some $600 million in extra revenue. The National Patent is a gross income tax levied on companies with a high volume of sales, exempting small businesses. This has caused large firms to express their discontent with the new tax. The Senate President said that a balanced budget is not a partisan or coalition issue. It means being responsible to the country. In the same vein, the official statement of Puerto Rico's Senate said they approved a balanced budget without resorting to a loan for the first time in the last 20 years. The House of Representatives also passed the Tax System Adjustment Act, which exempts companies with annual gross sales of less than $3 million from paying the national patent. According to a press release issued after the House floor vote, businesses with sales of $3 million up to $100 million will pay 0.35% on their annual income, while those with sales of $400 million will pay two special taxes. Companies with anywhere from $3 million to $300 million in gross sales will pay 0.2%. Businesses with sales of $300 million to $400 million will pay 0.28%. Venezuela. Venezuelan exiles dictator Maduro's stay away from Panama. This is also from the Pan Am Post and also published on July 2nd. Yesterday morning, a group of Venezuelan residents in Panama City protested outside the residence of the new president of Panama, Juan Carlos Varela, The demonstrators expressed their opposition to the possible presence of the president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, at Varela's presidential inauguration. They also asked Varela to take a firm stance against ongoing human rights violations inflicted by the Maduro regime in the oil exporting country. Venezuelan demonstrators acted in preemptive manner since the Venezuelan president has yet to confirm whether he will attend the inauguration ceremony. The presidents of other countries such as Costa Rica, Guatemala, El Salvador, and Spain have given such notice, and unofficial sources suggest that Venezuelan Vice President Jorge Arreza will travel in Maduro's place. Still, Adriana Chacin, a representative in Panama for the Venezuelan opposition party Popular Will, says the protests are carried out in advance precisely to let President Maduro know how the Venezuelan community there feels about the possibility of him visiting the country. And there's a little more to the story, and I'm sorry for mispronouncing names. Again, I'm really sorry. I'm just not good with Spanish. Especially. Not good with other names too, but yeah. So, moving on to Thursday, July 3rd. Congressman denied access to military facility housing 1,200 immigrant children, told to make appointment. This is also from benswan.com. In Fort Sill, Oklahoma, is one of the 3 facilities in the U.S. currently housing the unaccompanied immigrant children who have been flooding across the U.S. southern border for weeks. Many of these children, as we have reported, are from South America and are coming here without parents or adults. Currently, the Obama administration policy is that after these young people are apprehended on the border by U.S. Customs and Border Protection, the children are transferred to U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement for transport. According to Congressman Jim Bridenstine of Oklahoma, these children are then placed in the custody of the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, until released to a so-called sponsor in the U.S. Wanting to see these children firsthand, Congressman Bridenstine visited the facility at Fort Sill where these children are being housed. And in quotation marks, after my visit with the base commander, I approached the barracks where the children are housed. A new fence has been erected by HHS completely surrounding the barracks and covered with material to totally obscure the view. Every gate is chained closed, says Bridenstine. What was even more surprising was the U.S. Congressman was told that he could not enter the facility and that he would have to make an appointment to come back in 3 weeks. And quoting the congressman again, I approached a security guard and asked to speak with the manager of the facility. The guard called a supervisor who said no visitors were allowed. I asked if they were aware that I am a member of Congress. Eventually, the manager came out and said that I would have to go through HHS Legislative Affairs and that the first chance to visit would be July 21st. The move by HHS seemed not only unusual, but extremely inappropriate. As a member of Congress, why would Rep. Bridenstine be denied access? What are they trying to hide? Do they not want the children to speak with members of Congress? As a Navy pilot, I have been involved in operations countering illicit human trafficking. I would like to know to whom these children are being released, says Bridenstine. The congressman has now been joined by others, such as U.S. Congressman Thomas Massey, calling the denial of congressional representatives to these facilities as ridiculous. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. It is rather odd. And, here we're demanding our Congress to do something about the immigrations, but they're not allowed to actually have first-hand knowledge, of actually interacting with the immigrants and seeing things for what they really are on the ground as they are, that is pretty ridiculous. Alright, also, our next story is also from Ben Swan, and this one is, the heading is Fox News, one of the biggest donors for Hillary Clinton's for the better part of 2 decades. And I'm starting to run out of time, so I'm just going to have to read the headlines for the rest of these. U.S. Privacy Board decides to support NSA data collection. Krypton remaining Snowden docs will be released to avert unspecified U.S. war in July. Krypton, I guess, is another one of those websites that leaks information, and they are complaining about the reporter that Edward Snowden had worked with, because the reporter will only leak a little bit of information at a time rather than releasing all of it. But even Krypton, they're waiting to a date that they set that's beneficial to them to get their own spotlight for their release. So a little hypocritical there. I have yet to see what their release of the remaining documents has been yet, so I'll have to look that up. The last story for Thursday, July 3rd, that I have listed here is new Ukrainian rulers surrender sovereignty to EU. This is something that a lot of people are saying is exactly what was going to happen, because the revolution was backed by the EU, it was backed by US, and now the Western powers have gotten what they wanted. The Ukraine has surrendered their sovereignty to them. I did not read the full story, so maybe maybe the headline's a little more over dramatic. Anyway, Friday, July 4th. APD investigation continues after officer who shot 19-year-old claimed third body camera error. So this officer has had repeated scenarios of complaints of excessive force, and in all of those cases his cameras had errors. Next one here is, will latest legal challenge kill Obamacare? This is from thenewamerican.com, and question, different legal challenges to Obamacare, whether or not it's going to actually kill it. And there are several states working on writing and trying to pass in their state legislatures 10th Amendment type of legislation, either banning all of Obamacare implementation in their state or parts of it. Let's see. Also, his lawsuit responds to argument that voters have no rights in primaries but must pay for them. So this one is a story by benswan.com, and I believe this one takes place in New Jersey, where voters, if you're not registered with a particular party, you can't vote in the primaries, even though your taxpayer money is still paying for it. So state-funded private parties ruling the state. Does that make sense? Anyway, you can read the story at benswan.com or check out our news blitz on our homepage. We'll have all these stories listed. Real quick, just the last couple ones here. This is from Saturday, July 5th. U.S. troops secretly operating in Somalia since 2007. This story was from The New American. July 6th, so this was yesterday on Sunday. Libertarians branded new communists at Bloomberg.com. Also, does UN Arms Trade Treaty threaten the Second Amendment? Both of these stories are from The New American. And finally, for this morning, July 7th, FARC victims demand voice in Colombian peace process. And this is from the Pan Am Post. And it says, families fear deal with guerrilla may mean impunity for human rights violations. Representatives of 37 victim groups of the Colombian guerrilla gathered on July 3rd at the Club El Nogal in Bogota to meet members of the government's negotiating committee and demand that the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia ask forgiveness for their crimes. Victims of kidnappings and families of missing persons asked officials to address their request for active participation and presence in the peace process that has been taking place in Havana since 2013 in order to talk to the guerrilla face to face. The event began with an offering of flowers in tribute to those killed and injured when the FARC bombed the club in 2003. Fabiola Perdomo, widow Juan Carlos Narvaez, a politician killed by the guerrilla after 7 years in captivity, then addressed the crowd. All victims yearn for peace, but making peace does not mean forgetting the dead, kidnapping, missing, wounded, and displaced, said Perdomo. The dead of Club El Nogal are our dead, too. Your grief is our grief. And it continues on. Has some pictures of some guerrilla group negotiations with the Colombian government in Havana. So it has a picture of a group of people in camouflage with guns, posing with the peace sign. Okay, and that's our final story for today. As usual, there's probably a dozen or more stories that I've missed. Probably just haven't seen it yet. I saw it this weekend but didn't save the link. That often happens. There's a lot of stories, like I see so many of them, but I don't read all of them and I forget to save the links. But yes, so, we'll add more to our website, and you can find all the links to these stories on our website. As soon as our website technician, aka me, gets it posted. Okay, so that's gonna be it for today. Aside from our proverbs this afternoon, I hope everybody had a safe 4th of July weekend and has a safe week, this new week. I didn't see any bad stories about fireworks this year, so I'm relieved about that. We didn't have any incidents locally that I know of, so yay, that's good. And I hope that's true for everybody else. Alright, so we'll move on to our Proverbs. Proverbs chapter 7. My son, keep my words and lay up my commandments with thee. Keep my commandments and live, my law as the apple of thine eye. Bind them upon thy fingers, write them upon the table of thine heart. Say unto wisdom, thou art my sister, and call understanding thy kinswoman, that they may keep thee from the strange woman, from the stranger which flattereth with her words. For at the window of my house I looked through my casement, and beheld among the simple ones, I discerned among the youths a young man void of understanding, passing through the street near her corner, and he went the way to her house, in the twilight, in the evening, in the black and dark night. And behold, there met him a woman with the attire of an harlot, and subtle of heart. She is loud and stubborn, her feet abide not in her house. Now is she without, now in the streets, and lieth in wait at every corner. So she caught him, and kissed him, and with an impudent face said unto him, I have peace offerings with me. This day have I paid my vows. Therefore came I forth to meet thee diligently, to seek thy face, and I have found thee. I have decked my bed with coverings of tapestry, with carved works, with fine linen of Egypt. I have perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, Let us take our fill of love until the morning. Let us solace ourselves with loves. For the good man is not at home, he has gone a long journey. He has taken a bag of money with him, and will come home at the day appointed. With her much fair speech she caused him to yield. With the flattering of her lips she forced him. He goeth after her straightway, as an ox goeth to the slaughter, or as a fool to the correction of the stocks, till a dart strike through his liver, as a bird hasteth to the snare, and knoweth not that it is for his life. Hearken unto me now, therefore, O ye children, and attend to the words of my mouth. Let not thine heart decline to her ways, go not astray in her paths, for she hath cast down many wounded, yea, many strong men have been slain by her. Her house is the way to hell, going down to the chambers of death.